3 weeks before his wedding, my brother called me. His tone carried an unusual weight I hadn't heard before. When he told me not to come, I genuinely thought he was making a terrible joke. I asked him why, and after a long, uncomfortable silence followed by what felt like he said he didn't want his guests finding out his sister was in the cleaning business. The room around me felt like it had lost all its air. I kept waiting for him to take it back. He never did. Moments later, my mother joined the call and said something that cut even deeper. She told me to simply stay away, that it would be easier for everyone. I ended the call without saying another word. But on the morning of the wedding itself, 94 missed calls forced me to reconsider everything I had decided to ignore. My name is Emma Carter, and I was 37 years old when my own brother uninvited me from his wedding. What surprised me most was how little it shocked me. Some part of me had been quietly bracing for a moment like this for a long time. I grew up in a household where appearances carried enormous weight. My father measured a person's worth by their professional title. My mother lived by what neighbors and acquaintances thought of us, and my younger brother Ryan absorbed those values early and mastered them completely. Ryan was always the celebrated one, the future lawyer, the rising executive, the family's proof that things had turned out well. I was something different entirely. When our father lost his job during my final year of college, I left school without completing my degree so I could help keep the family afloat. Cleaning homes was simply the fastest work available to me at the time. I told myself it was temporary. Then something changed that I never anticipated. I discovered I was genuinely good at it. Clients began passing my name along to friends. Those friends told their neighbors. Within a few years, I had brought on employees, then supervisors, then full management staff. By the time I turned 37, I had built one of the most well-regarded residential cleaning companies in the entire region. We handled luxury homes, vacation estates, and corporate properties. Over 60 people worked under my company's name. I carried real pride in everything that business represented. My family carried something else entirely. Whenever someone asked Ryan what I did for work, he would answer that I ran a cleaning business. And the way he said it always sounded like an apology, like he was softening a disappointment on my behalf. Things intensified once he got engaged. His fiancée came from a wealthy background, and their wedding transformed quickly from a celebration into a carefully managed display of status. Exclusive venues, elaborate decor, and a guest list stacked with executives, attorneys, and investors. Every conversation circled back to image. 3 weeks before the date, Ryan called me. I answered with a genuine smile. That smile didn't last. He asked me not to come. I thought I had misunderstood him, so I asked him to repeat himself. He sighed and explained that he didn't want people at the wedding knowing his sister worked in cleaning. The words landed harder than I had prepared for. Then my mother joined the call and framed it as a matter of reducing pressure on Ryan, as though I were a scheduling conflict rather than a member of the family. I wanted to remind them of everything I had quietly sacrificed over the years. Instead, I said only one word, "Okay." Ryan sounded relieved. My mother expressed her thanks. The call ended. 3 weeks later, on the morning of that wedding, I sat alone at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee. Somewhere across the city, my family was celebrating together, and for the first time in my entire life, I had not been asked to stand beside them. I looked out the window and told myself I was fine. Then my phone rang. The first call came just after 10 in the morning. I let it go. A second followed almost immediately, then a third, then more. By noon, my phone had barely stopped moving. I checked the screen and saw name after name. Ryan, then Ryan again, my mother, relatives I rarely spoke with, people I hadn't heard from in years. Something had clearly gone wrong, and my first instinct was to leave every call unanswered. They had made their feelings clear 3 weeks earlier. Whatever was unfolding now was not something I had been invited to help resolve. I silenced the phone and returned to my work. That lasted less than half an hour. When I looked again, 47 missed calls had accumulated. An hour after that, the number had passed 70. By mid-afternoon, it had climbed to 94. I stared at the screen with genuine disbelief. Then a different name appeared. Linda Matthews, a longtime family friend who had always treated me with real warmth and without conditions. I picked up immediately. Linda's voice was breathless. She asked if I had seen my phone. I told her I had. She asked why I wasn't responding. I told her that 3 weeks of being kept away from the wedding made it difficult to feel urgency about answering now. There was a brief pause, and then she said something that genuinely caught my attention. She told me that my family regretted their decision. She explained that several of the guests Ryan had been so anxious to impress already knew exactly who I was. One of the attending investors, it turned out, owned 3 luxury properties that my company serviced. A commercial real estate developer had recognized my company name the moment it came up in conversation. During the reception, when someone casually mentioned that Ryan's sister owned a cleaning company, the response from nearby guests was immediate and enthusiastic. People began describing my business with real admiration, talking about the level of professionalism, the consistency of results, the difficulty of even getting onto our waiting list. One executive described my company as among the most respected service businesses operating in the region. As the praise continued building, someone eventually asked where I was. That question was the moment everything shifted. When the truth came out, the room reportedly went quiet. Suddenly, Ryan's choice didn't reflect confidence or sophistication. It reflected something much more uncomfortable. The people he had excluded me to impress were now the very people expressing admiration for what I had built. Linda told me the look on my family's faces was something she would not forget easily. I leaned back in my chair. For the first time since the morning had begun, what I felt wasn't hurt. It was something closer to clarity. I asked Linda what happened next. She told me that was the part I really needed to hear. She wasn't overstating it. The conversation had spread through the entire reception. One executive mentioned that my team managed luxury properties across the city. Another guest shared that he had attempted to contract my company several months earlier, but had been placed on a waiting list due to how high demand had grown. Then a hotel owner, someone who had hired my company for a major project the previous year, described the experience as one of the most professionally handled business relationships he had ever been part of. The room had stopped talking about the wedding. It was talking about me and what I had built without any help from the family that had just asked me to stay home. The more the guests spoke, the more Ryan's carefully constructed image began unraveling. Not because anyone was attacking him or exposing him deliberately, simply because the facts kept pushing back against the story he had been telling about me for years. One guest finally voiced what everyone in the room seemed to be thinking. If your sister built something this successful, why isn't she here? Nobody answered right away. My parents looked at Ryan. Ryan looked at the floor. The silence offered its own explanation. When it finally came out that I had been asked not to attend, the reaction from guests was not what my family had anticipated. Some looked visibly shocked. Others appeared genuinely confused. One investor shook his head and said he couldn't understand why anyone would be embarrassed by honest success. That single observation changed the atmosphere in the room entirely. For years, my family had evaluated my career by focusing on the tasks involved rather than what those tasks had produced. They saw cleaning as something small. Other people saw an organization. They saw supplies and equipment. Other people saw 60 employees, loyal clients, and a business that had earned its reputation the hard way. They measured status. Everyone else measured results. That afternoon, Ryan called again. This time, I answered. Neither of us spoke for several seconds. Then he apologized. He started to say I had embarrassed him, then stopped himself. He said that wasn't true. He said the only person he had embarrassed was himself. It was the most honest I had ever heard him sound. Not defensive, not calculating, just honest. That same evening, both of my parents called. The conversation was uncomfortable and emotional and overdue. My mother admitted that she and my father had spent years dismissing something they had never taken the time to fully understand. My father said he had confused prestige with actual value. Neither apology could undo what had already happened, but both of them mattered to me nonetheless. When the last call ended, I sat in the same kitchen where that morning I had felt entirely shut out. The same kitchen where I had briefly allowed my family's opinion to feel like a verdict. It wasn't. The truth was far simpler than any of the stories I had been telling myself for years. Dignity grows from honest work. Success grows from persistence. And genuine self-respect comes from the quiet decision to stop allowing other people to determine what your life is worth. My brother's wedding upended a great deal, but the most enduring thing it gave me was this. The people who underestimate you almost always end up revealing far more about their own limitations than they ever reveal about yours.